So, the reading for the sermon this morning is taken from Matthew chapter 4, entitled, Jesus Calls the First Disciples. Then walking by the Sea of Galilee, Jesus saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed Jesus. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed Jesus. So I want to talk a little bit about banking to start, because banking, as it exists now, is really quite profound in its ability to teach spiritually. I learned a long time ago that there's all sorts of rules that apply to banking that are quite fascinating. For example, the banks present an opportunity to hold our money. It's very kind of them, right? And nowadays, you log in and you just see a number on the screen that says this is how much money is yours. You don't have the money. They're holding on to it. In reality, they're only holding on to a fraction of it. They're only beholden to a reserve, a certain figure. So if you say, let's say your bank account shows $50,000, technically they only have to have on hand something like, I don't know what percentage of it is, 10, 12%, something like that. And so that's called their reserve, and they have a required reserve to hold. Then they take all the rest of the money that you have given to them, and they invest it. The concept is that I use my money, or actually it's not even their money. It's our money, and they use it to create more money. And so whatever they make off it, they keep. And then they're like, well, you still got your 50 grand, but we were able to use your 50,000 to make an additional 10,000, and so that was good for us. And it's actually a very cooperative relationship. We don't sit there and go like, well, you should give me a portion of that 10,000, because that's not how it works. We're just happy that the money is in a secure place. So we don't have to think about the days where you would tuck the money under the mattress or something weird like that. You can pretty much bank for no fees if you, well, this is the trick, if you are prompt in your dealings. And that really is the theme of today's service, is that love is prompt. I would like that those three words to be emblazoned upon your soul. Love is prompt. We saw in this reading this morning that Jesus approached Simon, Peter, and Andrew, and immediately they left their boats and followed him. Now the image, because a lot of times the biblical stories sound a little bit like a fable, like Jesus passed by, they were on the boat, he said, "Follow me," and they just ran out of the boat and started walking behind him. I mean, if you believe that this actually happened, like that actually Jesus saw these two and called them, there was probably not the immediate sense of running away from their boat and just letting it drift off. But what's important is the energy of what happened. The energy was essentially, they must have felt something, and they left their boat, which probably meant they left their fishing profession and just went, this is what I'm going to do now. So that sense of immediacy wasn't necessarily, I'm just going to run out of my boat and just forget about it. It's the sense that I felt something, I've been praying for it, and now I'm going to do it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time humming and hawing about it. That promptness is very much an aspect of love. Let's go back to the bank for a moment. When you have a credit card, if you use credit cards to the best of their ability, you can buy all these things during the month just by showing a piece of plastic. And then at the end of the month, you give them the money, no fees. So they're fronting you all this money. They're lending you all this money, right? But what happens if you're not prompt in paying it back? Now they're going to charge you, and I was meditating on that word, they're going to charge you a late fee. So they understand the concept of promptness. If you think about the term charge, it's a very aggressive word. If somebody's charging at you, there's a sense of a lot of movement of energy. For somebody to be in charge is somebody that has the power. So they have decided that if you do not pay your entire balance At the end of the month, we're saying, hey, we were willing to give you the money for a month. But if you don't pay it all to us, we're going to charge you a fee for being late if you don't make your payment on time. We're going to talk about interest in a moment, because that's a whole other weird word. Well, you're going to make it more interesting for us. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. Mm-hmm. If you pay your balance on time, you don't pay a late fee. So they're rewarding us for being prompt, which I think is a beautiful thing. Now, if you don't pay it, so you make your payment on time, but you don't pay the entire balance, now they want interest. So I was trying to go, how can I make sense of this word interest? They want more of my interest in the experience. I like the idea that if I experience the grace of my bank that says, hey, spend money as freely as you want, but just make sure at the end of the month you pay it off. We don't mind that time period where you can sort of, don't have to pay interest. And then you reach a point where you go like, oh, if I manage my money and I sort of keep my attitude in this love is prompt, the bank really, I never have to pay any fees to the bank. I mean, it is very possible to do. And then, now as the bank is starting to get to a point where they're going to give you interest, they're going to express more love to you because you've left your money with them, which is nice. So, this week I would like you to examine to what degree you embody this principle, love is prompt. Love is prompt really forces us to consider the other person's experience. When you get a phone call, do you see the call coming in and go like, I don't want to deal with this right now? So that is the opposite of love is prompt, because that other person has a desire to speak to you. And in their feeling, probably most of the time, they wish that you would pick up. If we begin to get into the mindset of like, how can I live the principles that Jesus taught? So here comes a phone call, and if my initial inclination is to go, me, I don't feel like it right now, I'll deal with this later. That is not love is prompt. There's very little love in that. There's no sense of awareness of like, who is this person and why might they be calling me and how important is it to them at this moment? Have you ever wanted to call somebody and just so badly wanted to talk to them for some reason? Maybe you wanted to apologize, maybe you wanted to celebrate some good news, maybe you needed some advice. And how disheartening it can be in that moment when you hear it go to the voicemail. It's not the end of the world, but how great it is when that person picks up and is receptive to you, is willing to drop what they're doing and be there for you. That is a really beautiful expression of love is prompt. So as we aspire to walk this mystical path, there's a few prongs to it. As you guys know, because I emphasize this, one of the most primary is meditation, because the transformation occurs inwardly. So we have to have a good relationship with our inner life. We have to refine the way that we think to keep our mind from drifting into these negative states of mind. And that at times is interesting, and other times seems almost impossible. Okay, but we will get better at it. So that, there's parameters of good thinking, good, clean, reasoning thinking, creative thinking, positive thinking, encouraging thinking. And then at either end of it, we want to imagine that there's these electrified fences, so that when our minds start to drift into something negative or despairing or depressed or anxiety or laziness or whatever it is, that we hit those electrified pieces and we get a little jolt inside, what we call the nudge of the spirit going, don't go there, not going to be good. Now we can still go like, you know what, I can't resist today. And so you let your mind drift into that. Okay, well, we're going to continually refine that so that we respond to the nudge when that higher presence in us says, don't go there. Meditation is also really critical for processing emotions. In some spiritual teachings, they'll talk about the causal body and the astral body and the emotional body and the mental body. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body. Are they actual bodies? I don't know, but the concept being there's a point where I become identified with my emotional self. So if I'm in a state of irritation, and then let's say somebody asks me for something, and I have the right to then go, I'm angry right now, so you can't count on me. Or I'm really anxious right now, so don't expect me to be responsible. So that's when I have relate or identified as the emotional body. In this path, we really attend to that promptly. Because if all of a sudden I'm angry or anxious and now I can't take the call because I'm too much about me, then I've lost my love as prompt. And I've identified and I've given myself an out from consciousness because of these emotions that I feel. However, if I have a meditation practice in which I attend to my emotions regularly and promptly, another expression of love is prompt. If I'm in an emotional state and I go, I don't want to deal with it right now, I want to have a couple of glasses of wine, watch Netflix, go to bed, tomorrow maybe I'll look at it, maybe on the weekend. That is not love as prompt. So I become unavailable for that period of time to myself and to other people. You know, you never hear stories in the Bible where somebody approached Jesus and he said, like, I really can't deal with this right now. I got a lot going on, but I'll get back to you. You know, we don't know exactly what was going on for him, but he seemed able to address everything in the moment. So that is somebody who has mastered the pressure of their own mind and their own emotions. And of course, he had to retreat to the mountain to meditate, to commune with God, and we do the same. We have to have a certain percentage of our life is very much about solitude, because otherwise there's no replenishing time. So number one, I think, on the path is we need a meditation practice because we need to get to know ourselves. We need to refine ourselves. I would say number two is studying the life of Christ, because he is the way. He demonstrated the way, and so in the books of the Gospels, the way is defined. Now, the way has to be kind of unlocked for us, because obviously there are ways to read into it that many of us have felt, well, that doesn't feel right. It feels rigid, that feels kind of hateful, that feels separatist. But when you really meditate in the mystical sense, and you get together and we say, Great Spirit of God, reveal the truth here, we will see what is in those scriptures that will liberate us, can only liberate us, because it's all about love. So number two is commit to studying the Gospels. Number three is about studying the universal principles that apply on the earth. You know, during the solstice we talked about two of them, the principle of correspondence, and I think I mentioned the principle of cause and effect. We will uncover all of the principles over time as you walk the path. The principle of cause and effect is simply that nothing happens that is not preceded by a cause. So every action that we do results in some sort of an effect. Now, this is a beautiful thing, because if there's an effect you want, you just have to trace back to what will cause that to happen. A lot of the times we can't see, well, I have this effect in my life, but I can't see how I was part of the cause, so then we slip into victim mentality. We go, this must be happening to me. Oh, woe is me. I try so hard to do the best thing, and look at all this hardship that befalls me. But we on this path go, I'm missing something, because there's always a cause that precedes an effect. That puts a tremendous amount of pressure on myself to examine how might I be contributing to the cause. And some people go like, so are you saying everything that bad happens to me is my fault? No, you see, that's a language that's pharisaical in language, right? Because what is it? Is it really asking the question, or is it accusing? You know, if there's an accusation in there, we say it's pharisaical. If somebody said, I don't really understand what you're saying, because it sounds to me like you're saying everything that happens to me is kind of my fault. Is that what you're saying? Now that's like how somebody approaches Jesus and goes, explain this to me, Lord, because, you know, I'm just blind in this area. And what Jesus would often do is he would teach in a parable, because that parable gives you the space to integrate it into your life in a way that's applicable. We talked about how God speaks to us in symbols. So the discovery of how my effect may be tied to a cause that I cannot yet see, when I discover that for myself in the privacy of meditation, I'm changed. Much more so than when somebody tells me exactly what it is. So there's a beautiful element to the mystical path where things are revealed to us. Now, they will be harder to reveal them if we are not prompt. You will find that things are coming up in your life, and that gives you a window of opportunity to address them. And if you move promptly in that, you're in line with the grace. The supernatural world is looking to support that which you want to accomplish. But if you go like, oh, I can't deal with it right now, and then you wake up tomorrow, it's like, I'm not really feeling it, so I'm going to move on. And then 3 days later, it's like, I guess it fixed itself. It probably didn't, but it's probably laying dormant there until the next episode comes along. At which point we go like, oh, I thought I resolved this. But I actually didn't do anything about it. I just sort of hoped it went away. So I think that's enough. Meditation, studying the life of Christ, studying the universal principles, and really then trying to implement the virtues and the positive ways of living, which will be very challenging. Because let's say now you go like, I love this love is prompt thing. Yeah, I realize the areas where I do tend to be prompt. We were talking about this in our meditation class yesterday. It's like one of the students there was saying like, people used to call me really rigid because I was like, you got to be there on time. And I'm like, I mean, if you are rigid about it, then you're rigid. If you're like, I need to be there on time, and anyone who's not on time, I'm going to berate them, that might be a little too tight. But to want to be there on time because you understand that being there on time or being there a little early is an expression of consideration and respect for whoever is, conducting the meeting or the event. And I've had people say, yeah, but I don't want to get there too early because then I got nothing to do. It's like, oh, I didn't realize it was all about you. That's the challenging thing about this path, is that we see to the degree to which our thinking really makes sense when we're the only person that matters. So we are looking to break out of that. Now initially, there's resistance because people have anger in there that they don't know about. So why do I have to do that? I'm getting there early, but nobody else is. So why the hell should I? Blah, blah, blah. So all that anger is just a waste of time. When you begin to live love as prompt, you may go like, wow, I really see the degree to which people don't live love as prompt. Okay, well, the road less traveled, right? We walk through this gate and it's narrow, and the road is hard that leads to life. And not that many take it. So why do it? Because we're not living for other people. We're living for God. And I truly believe that. To whatever degree I've been on this path, I just go, it's worked out for me. So yes, can it be frustrating when you wished that other people were understanding the idea of being prompt? Yeah, of course. How might we move them to a point where they would be interested in that? Well, I can tell you the way that doesn't work is to berate them every time they're late. To sulk and pout and punish them for their lateness, totally unacceptable. To model love as prompt, to speak the word with conviction and love, that could work. Some people will have the ears to hear. But we have to meet the person where they are. And maybe sometimes we just have to go, I was having feelings about the fact that you're typically 10, 15 minutes late. Share with me your perspective on that. Let me understand that. And without this, no sarcasm, no hidden agenda, but a true desire to understand how the person arrived at the place where they feel that this is acceptable. And then truly receiving them. Like, oh, so in your mind, and I'm not sarcastic and accusatory, in your mind, if it says 7 o'clock, you think up until 7:20 is totally acceptable, right? Yeah, because that's been your experience, and that's the kind of thing that you're okay with other people. You call an event at 7, you're like, if people show up at 7:20, I'm fine with it. Okay. So all of a sudden we seek to understand the individual. Now they may be open to hearing our perspective once we have put the effort in to understand them. Because I can say, well, I understand your perspective. Would you be willing to hear mine? If they're like, I kind of already know yours. You don't like it when I'm a minute late. Okay, there's not that much openness, right? So what are you going to do? Force them to hear your side? What's revealed in that is all you need to know. This is where they're at. It's unlikely to change because their belief is that they're not even late, right? They don't even think they're late. At 7:21, they're a little bit late. In your mind, it's like 21 minutes? Oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to not expect that much of the person. Now that is an expression of love because I accept their free will. But if it causes too much angst in me, I'm not going to become so intense about it because of how they act. No, we are always going to refine ourselves and go, Christ consciousness, I see only what is. I do not embellish it with my emotional preferences. So if I work with somebody or I'm dating somebody or one of my family members does not have promptness as part of the vocabulary, then I have to adjust my expectation upon that individual. And they may shift or they may not. But you will find the peace that is lacking if you do so. So let's go out into the world this upcoming week and begin to examine where we remain prompt because we value that promptness for the other person, and at what point we unhinge from that and go, no, I don't want to respond right now. I don't want to give in that way. And let's begin to tighten it up a little bit.